A year ago, I talked about my thoughts on the original Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter, and I walked away playing that game for the first time very impressed with the quality and gameplay experiences on offer there. It was really one of the first third-party game releases on the Xbox 360 that truly gave me a next-generation game experience. And I felt, at least, that it was a step above all of the third-party game releases on that system when it came out. Today, however, I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on its sequel, Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter 2, a game that I played for the first time just a little bit ago via backwards compatibility on the Xbox Series X. Now, admittedly, I was a bit surprised that Ubisoft pumped out this sequel only a year after the first game. Now, all this sort of harkens back to is a time period where game development didn't take a millennia and was just simplified all around. But yeah, Advanced Warfighter 2 is only next year's game, and I have to say, sadly, that does show here. The first game really gave you this wide open space deep within the heart of Mexico to explore, and it just felt refreshing and impressive, and just the size of it was downright expansive for what was a first few months release on the Xbox 360. So what do we get here in Gra 2? Well, we have the same location. Unfortunately, the gameplay experience doesn't expand to a new location in this sequel. We are still in Mexico for this one, but I must say that there does seem to be a bit more variety in terms of the locations here, or at least the style of how these locations look. So you'll be providing cover fire within industrial sites, city streets, rooftops, and even the outskirt deserts of Mexico. And there's of course turret sections that make a return here, so you at least get to see a bit more variety in the location than what was sort of given to you in the first game. But the size of these worlds, to me at least, didn't quite feel as expansive as the first game. It's almost as if they aimed to provide more intimate moments compared to its predecessor's more isolated feeling. This is still a third-person cover shooter at the end of the day, but control-wise, things have been a bit streamlined, and it's mostly comparable to how the first game played, but you do get more tactical options in this sequel. You have more granular control over your squad mates, the commands that you can give them, and if you know what you're doing, you could really call in some heavy support. And I think that the coolest element about this whole system is that you get the gameplay of a third-person cover shooter with some elements of like a real-time strategy game mixed in there, and this just creates an experience that truly feels unique and is just simply fun with some light, strategic thinking and decision making involved. So let's pivot for a quick sec and take a look at the box art for Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter 2. It's a cool cover art, has the Tom Clancy branding on the left there, which is pretty nice, and we have a color-coded spine, which is really cool. They started doing that this generation. On the top there, it says sequel to the 2006 Game of the Year, which, I'm not sure exactly if that was official or not, but yeah, pretty cool to see. Cool look at the game disc here. Pretty simplistic like the front cover, but works, and there's a clean copy, which is nice. And then we got the manual here, and the manual goes into pretty good detail, I have to say. It is black and white, so we don't get a full color manual here, but we do have a lot of pages that, as you're going to see, go into some pretty good detail regarding the gameplay, the different elements, and heads-up display items, everything basically surrounding that. There's multiplayer information in there, different details about the map system and how that works. So pretty cool. We have an ad there for Raymond as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter 2 box art. Now, I have to say, narratively, however, the stakes didn't quite seem as high as the first game either. Now, you're still playing as your main character for this story, but the plot sort of revolves around civil unrest in Mexico, as it's sort of being occupied by rebellion forces, and then you're there to kind of more or less provide support. It all just feels a bit less exciting compared to like the president being kidnapped and the nuclear football codes being stolen in the first game. The campaign here is short, but honestly it's comparable to how many games were back then. And I just have a feeling that they really tried to focus mostly on the multiplayer for the sequel, and that the campaign team was just sort of given an opportunity to create some fun missions and kind of wrap it all in a simplistic storyline. Now, visually, we have here a extremely impressive and just competent technical release on the Xbox 360. New for this game is it's a cross-gen release. It's actually on PlayStation 3. Now, you have to keep in mind that when the original game launched, the PS3 wouldn't have been out for like another 8 months or so. But what we have here just sort of simply builds on an already hugely impressive technical leap for the generation. As I said earlier, the locations, while they don't seem as expansive, you do have ample detail in just about everything that you lay your eyes on. Character rendering also looks a touch better here, and there's sort of more environmental effects, and I think the presentation just looks very solid all around. I also played this on the Xbox Series X, so very much like the first game, this provides you with a silky smooth 60 frames per second thanks to the improvements made by the Xbox compatibility program. And so, you know, when you're playing it today, it's super accessible and so much more enjoyable thanks to this. And I'm just happy to see it supported here. Auto HDR as well, like the first game, adds just a bit more punch to the image at the expense of accuracy and creative intent. So that's sort of up to you if you want to utilize that feature. But yeah, this is a very, very impressive looking game. Still, you know, to this day, you'll be surprised at some of the effects they kind of throw at you, and they just did a great job utilizing, I think really building on top of the foundation of what the first game did with the incredible engine and the technology that they were kind of spearheading at that time. And when it comes to the sound design, there's not really too much I can say here. You know, guns and explosions, they all sound great. The soundtrack is sort of there, but it kind of fades into the background. And there's just some, you know, nice environmental sounds that sort of add to the game's ambience and atmosphere. Voice acting as well is really good. You know, you have your commander sort of video calling in during your fights. And I think everything here just sounds solid enough sort of as it should. There's nothing here to assume that it would take you out of your gameplay experience in any way. But at the same time, I don't think, you know, you're going to be quite shocked, you know, by the acting and sort of the soundtrack at play here. It just sort of, you know, adds and does what it needs to without really getting in the way or making its presence known. So to sum up, Advanced Warfighter 2 tiptoes its way forward and then takes one step back. What we have here are sort of a microcosm of small improvements with a bit of a weaker story and familiarity really holding it back from really reaching new heights, in my opinion. I think that being able to see a different location, perhaps they could have stayed within the Latin American continent but just featured something, I don't know, a bit more rural or different. For me at least, this game ends up sort of feeling like a big expansion to the first game, more so than a direct sequel. But I can't deny that all the components that you loved and really enjoyed about the first game, they're all sort of present here, and that makes up for a pretty satisfying gameplay experience all around. And I just think it could have benefited a bit more from perhaps an extra year in development and better creative direction. But I'm sure that if you were around when this game was live and active with the multiplayer, you probably can speak more fondly about it. But, you know, looking at it purely from a single player campaign, there's just a bit more to be desired on that front. Overall, I had a great time with Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter 2. You know, all of this just sort of harkens back to a different time with, you know, well, a very different Ubisoft. So thanks everyone for watching this video. Let me know what your thoughts are on this sequel if you played it, how you feel it compares to the original game for you, and also the multiplayer, which I didn't get to touch on here. I'll see you all in the next one, and have a great day.